Chuckloaf here. 1200 Films podcast, all horror, all the time. Filmmaker Joe Kevarubius asked me to do a review of his recent short film, so we will start the show with that. La Asesina, directed by Joe Kevarubius. You're probably thinking, Chuckloaf, how the hell do you know a filmmaker? Long story short, I had watched The Unwelcoming House, and I was watching the trailer, and I saw that the director had posted the trailer on his YouTube page, and he says, if you have any questions, post them below. And I think after asking several questions, he ended up just Facebooking me, which was nice of him, and has successfully kept me up to date on all of his new projects, which I thank him for. He is of The Unwelcoming House. I wanted to be the first to review The Unwelcoming House 2 that he made, but Amazon wouldn't let me. Even though I was an Amazon Prime member and paid the $1.99 for the movie, they would not let me leave a review because I had not spent enough money on Amazon. Well, Christmas came around, and I eventually spent enough money on Amazon to leave a review, and I did. A very nice one. But then he... before he has come out with a third Unwelcoming House, he has made the short film and has politely asked me to review it on my show. I said that would be no problem. So here it is. When the first started, I was excited because I saw, hey, it's the cemetery chick from the Unwelcoming House movies. And I thought, maybe it's a spinoff. Maybe it's occurs in the Unwelcoming House universe. No, not really. But that's fine. But there's no dialogue in this short film. It didn't really need it. It explained the stories with the background scenes just fine. And then the actress's eyes told you everything you needed to know what was going on. Just had to keep an eye on her, keep an eye on her face, and she could tell you what was going on. Yeah, she had some wild eyes. Woo. My only tiny nitpick I would have for this film, with the title of La Asesina, when she opens the paper, it says murderer on it. Probably shouldn't have been in English. Should have been in Spanish with a little subtitle at the bottom of the screen translating it. But that's really only nitpick I could find in this film. A very strong entry from Joe Kevarubius as I continue to wait patiently for part 3 of The Unwelcoming House. Still curious to see what direction he goes in with the third one. But you can find this on YouTube. Type in A Slice of Fright, La Asesina, L-A Asesina, A-S-E-S-I-N-A, and you can find it there. I don't do a whole lot on short films. I could probably do a whole show on short films. Another filmmaker I'm Facebook friends with is Michael Ramova, who did a wonderful adaptation short film of Friday the 13th, the video game, which is unbelievable. Unbelievably awesome. I donated some cash to that. So that's part of that movie's, And also, if you want to find a good short film on YouTube real quick, another one, there's a good Slender Man one. It's the only good thing you'll find on Slender Man. It's called The Victim, a Slender Man movie, I think. But yeah, that's so in the future I'll probably have to do a whole show on short films, but let's get going back to the regular scheduled program. All right, all the films reviewing today will be from 2020. Of course, the rating scale at the bottom, we have dumpster, fire, garbage. And then we have can't quite recommend, and then okay if desperate. And then put it on the watch list, and then we have put on top of the watch list. Here we go. Film number 1, IBR. Critic rating of 82%. There is no audience score yet for some reason. But this is an excellent little film. This chick is moving to the big time, moving to Hollywood. And she finds this apartment complex to live in, and apparently once you move in, you don't move out. It's this strange religious cult type thing going on there. After they torture you into submission, you have to join their cult and do as they say, and do whatever job they give you. Or else, things go bad for you, and you don't leave alive. So this chick, she plays along, and you're just waiting for her. Okay, make your move. There's your chance. Make your move. Go, get out. But it's interesting little take on cult films. I would definitely put it on the watch list. Check this out. At 1BR. Did I say IBR? No, it's 1BR. Like a room number. Anyway, next one. Color Out of Space. Critic rating 86%. Audience score 82%. A entry from Nicolas Cage. Boy, this film is weird. I do not promote drug use. But if you're going to do drugs, you should watch this movie as you're doing them. It would make it that much better. Everything in this film eventually becomes kind of a hue of purple. This meteorite crashes in his backyard. And I know it's been done. That Will Wheaton movie it had done that before from the 80s, whatever that was called. But yes, this meteorite crashes in the backyard, and things start to get crazy, and the infection, I guess you would call it, starts to spread to the people and to the land. But yeah, it's trippy. It's not a great film, but you can't really look away because it's so bizarre. Yep, I would say put it on the watch list. Check it out. And if you want to do a little acid while you do it, hey, tell them Chuckloaf said it was okay. Next film, Come to Daddy. Critic rating 86%. Audience score 75%. Elijah Wood stars in this. And co-starred Stephen McHattie, who pops up later in this group of films today that I'm reviewing. He gets around. Google him. You'll recognize him. Stephen McHattie. Elijah Wood gets this letter from his dad that he has not seen since he was a very tiny child, and decides to go visit him. And then things get weird when you realize, wait a minute, is that his dad? And why would he send them that letter? And then the film takes a whole different direction, which was kind of a step down. It was then put on watch list range, and then it kind of tiptoed down to okay if desperate. But it's still fine, worth a watch, sure. Then we got Gretel and Hansel, not Hansel and Gretel, Gretel and Hansel. Why is Gretel first? Because Gretel's the star of the film. God damn it. Critic rating 64%, audience score of 23%. I can understand why audiences did not like it. It's why I didn't like it. It's a lot of dark imagery, a lot of badness in the dark image. No, it kind of tried to be the Witch. Remember that great movie from a couple years ago, which was like a nightmare on film? It tried to be like that, and it's not. You know the fairy tale. Hansel and Gretel, blah, 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 blah. This old woman, and she makes them food, and she tries to cook them up, and, well, Gretel ends up befriending the witch, and Gretel becomes like the next generation of the witch. So it takes some different turns, but still, it's just not good. I would say can't quite recommend. Sorry. Next one, Vivarium. Critic rating 72%, audience score of 40. I'm with the critics on this one. This was fine. Jesse Eisenberg stars. This kind of reminded me of a Twilight Zone episode. It probably would have been better as a Twilight Zone 30-minute episode or hour episode instead of a full-length movie. But it was still interesting, still fine. Jesse Eisenberg and his fiancée, I guess, they're looking for houses. And they go on a tour of these houses, and the guy giving them the tour just drops them off and leaves them there. And then they find out they can't get out of the neighborhood and are forced to stay in the house that the retailer had showed them. And they're then forced to raise this child that's not theirs. And this child is bizarre. Bizarre with a capital B. But there's this film's weird, but it keeps you watching. So I would say go ahead, put it on the watch list. It's more of a psychological horror instead of like stab, murder horror. But yeah, check it out. Then we have The Lodge. Critic rating 74%, audience score 51. Oh, Alicia Silverstone popped up in the first couple minutes. I briefly talked to her on the phone one time about 20 years ago. Here's that story. I was playing checkers on Yahoo online in the middle of the night, and I was chatting with the people I was playing against. This one guy says I live in New York and about having this big party tomorrow, and I'm inviting Alicia Silverstone over. And I said, you're full of garbage. That's no way. Well, after a while, he gave me his number to call him during the party the next day so I could talk to Alicia Silverstone. Well, I couldn't pass this up, so I eventually called the next day. And there was definitely a party of some kind going on, a very low-key party. And he handed the phone to this woman, and I talked to her for a moment. I said she was a little drunk, but it sounded just like Alicia Silverstone. I don't remember exactly what we said to each other. It was a very brief conversation. It was okay, thanks for talking. And she said, why aren't you here? It's like, well, I'm several states away. I can't really just jump over. But yes, that was my brief interaction with a possible Alicia Silverstone. But anyway, so I get excited when I see her because I may have talked to her. Anyway, The Lodge, Alicia Silverstone and this guy, this family, and Alicia Silverstone kills herself in the first 2 minutes and she's dead. Well, fast forward to 6-7 months later, the guy, the husband, who was having an affair at the time Alicia Silverstone killed herself. He ends up inviting her to the cabin with the kids, and the kids know who this woman is. So they don't like her. So eventually they go to the cabin and everything's going fine, and then the husband has to leave for a day or two, and then things get weird. And it's like they're stuck in an alternate dimension, and they start theorizing. Like, okay, maybe we died, maybe this happened. So of course, if they're theorizing it and putting it in the movie at that point, that's not what happened. Which I thought was a bummer. Because I was theorizing in my head, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, and maybe it's this. But no, they were blowing it right there for you as they were theorizing out loud in the middle of the film what was going wrong. Uneven is the best way I would describe this film. Takes some weird turns, not really good turns, but it was still, I guess, watchable. Okay if desperate. The Lodge. Here we go. Invisible Man. Critic rating 91%. Audience score 88. From the director of Upgrade. Upgrade is a better film, but this was a fine film. The camera work, I think, kind of stole the show. When you can show a shot of the corner and be worried something's in that corner, when that's all it takes, that's pretty impressive. It's like when the original POV shots they did in the Halloween, when you had there'd be like a bush in the background, and all of a sudden you would see Michael Myers' POV peeking around from behind the bush. Like, oh gosh, Michael Myers is right there. He's so close. He's peeking up behind the bush. That's kind of what this was. And the whole thing with the Stalker of Invisibility reminded me of a book I read called Camelio, which is worth a read. Or you could get it on Amazon Audible, and they could read it to you. But yes, I had to deal with people, a real life story of someone being stalked by an invisible entity. But Invisible Man, yes. It told you real quickly in the first 5 minutes with this chick doing a prison break, escape out of the boyfriend's place, that this guy's not good. He's not nice. If you have to do a full-on prison break out of the house, which she must have been planning this for months, then obviously he's pretty rotten, and you learn he is pretty rotten. But yes, there are some holes. Yes, there are some slow points, but overall still fine little film. I would say it's definitely put it on the watch list. But I think most people have already seen it. But let's move on to our feature review, the movie Z.
I'm sorry, didn't you?
He's here with you, isn't he, Beth?
Get off that trash! I never want to see you again! He saw you too. Stop!
I swear, I saw something standing in the corner, watching me.
Please, I think you should go now.
Z. Critic rating 95%, audience score of 64%. This was a Shudder exclusive film. I had no idea what I was getting into. I did not know of the high critic rating it had. Before I watched it, I just pushed play, and I was blown away. It's the boy with an imaginary friend who turns out to be not so imaginary. I'm sure super hardcore fans are saying, isn't that the same plot as Daniel Isn't Real, which just came out last year with Patrick Schwarzenegger? I said it's a very similar plot, not the same, but this film is 2,817 times better than Daniel Isn't Real. This movie actually has a good story arc. And about an hour in, it changes directions, and not in a bad way. It makes sense. But this is the other film that co-stars Stephen McHattie, who is in this film as a small role as a child psychologist, which is well casted. But it focuses on the mother more than the boy with the imaginary friend, because the mother is the only one that's really able to see it. And then eventually, other people start to see it and realize, oh, wait a minute, there's something going on. But yeah, excellent film, gosh. And of course, if you want a free month of Shudder, use the promo code HMP, and you can get a free month. I've used that code multiple times now, and it always seems to work. That's on them, not me. So yeah, that's this episode. On the next one, we'll finally review the correct 2019 version of The Lighthouse, the one with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Then we'll get to Zombieland 2, and then we'll get to the other two escape room films. There was the major one in 2019, and then there was the other ones. One came out in 2017, and then the other one came out shortly after that, called No Escape Room. We will cover those. And then we'll cover a film called The Cure for Wellness. And then we'll go back to the 70s and cover the original found footage movie called Cannibal Holocaust. Joe Bob Briggs did this was one of his movies that he does, or else I probably wouldn't have ever watched it. So we'll get to watch that. Then one called Extremity. And then one called Camp Cold Bank, which I found on Vudu. So, yeah, we'll cover those gems on the next one. So, until then, I suppose, I'll see you later.